introduction. Okay, so thank you very much for being here with us. This is another smart discussion that we have been doing during the last 5 years, and especially during this year. Today, I think it will be a very interesting discussion because we are going to speak about a very, very interesting topic that most of the persons that are here know: smart government. Why we need a smart government? Which kind of smart government do we need? Which implications we have for that? So we have today to introduce the topic to persons that are working on that in different contexts. Sofia Silva Carballido, I knew here in Madrid some weeks ago. She is working on this topic and has a good experience on that. I think she will give us some interesting insights. Then we have Gonçalo, that most of you know. It's a very experienced person in these topics. He have some jobs in government. Now he's working in the private sector, but of course, always dealing with these topics. So the idea is that we start with Sofia, then we have Gonçalo, and then we have the discussion between all of us. And as you know, we are interested that everyone gives his insight and things like that. Thank you very much. And Sofia, the floor is yours.
All right, so pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jaime, for the invitation. I am Sofia Silva Carballido. I am head of growth at a company, which is a GovTech advisory firm called Gobe Studio. We're based in Madrid, but we work in Europe and in Latin America mostly. And what we do is public sector innovation, but from a very particular lens. What we believe is that when we're working in public sector modernization, it could be digital transformation, but it could also be, kind of like a change in the mindset or a modernization of other aspects. We believe that there are a lot of innovative solutions that are there in the market already that are being developed by entrepreneurs, so by startups, scale-ups, or digital SMEs that could be leveraged for the public sector, right? So we think that there are certain challenges within the public administration that sometimes can benefit for long developments that require a lot of investment and a lot of research and and R&D. Some other challenges may be solved by design thinking processes, by communication strategies, but there are other aspects, other problems that we believe that could be solved by incorporating some of those solutions that are already in the market, that are being commercialized and that are already out there. They don't need development, they don't need further investment, and that they could be easily integrated within certain government departments and administrations. So that's exactly what we do. We try to bridge the public sector and the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We try to bring them together so that for certain problems that happen within the public administration that are very tactical, usually very well scoped, and usually very replicable across various different government levels and different departments. We try to identify those problems and we try to solve them by matching them with solutions that are already in the market, right? So startup and digital SMEs solutions that are out there. How do we do that? We do that via open innovation programs, which resemble a little bit the open innovation methods that we see in the private sector, but that of course require different contexts when applied to the public sector. First of all, because entrepreneurs and public administration don't really speak the same language, so facilitation is really important. Second of all, because we have to work around procurement, because that's the only way that entrepreneurs can actually later scale those solutions. So there's a big component there around being innovative with the public sector laws. We don't necessarily need new laws. Sometimes it's just about interpreting them in innovative ways. And then lastly, we need to also upscale the supply of innovative solutions, right? So how do we enable those entrepreneurs that want to work with government to actually be competitive within those markets and to adjust their value proposition to this public sector, to speak the language of government, to understand B2G, business to government cycles, sales cycles, and to understand the barriers that they will be facing. So that's ultimately what we do. We work both on the demand and the supply. So demand in this case is government, and supply in this case as well is startups or innovative companies. we try to upskill them both on how to work with each other, and we try to generate enablers such as I mentioned before, innovative procurement. And on top of that, we try to advocate for these type of agendas internationally. So we are players that have been pioneers in the Spanish market. We were set up as a company in 2020. We've been working in these methodologies for 5 years, and we have also pioneered in Latin America and in Europe. We are working with the European Commission and American Development Bank, or the Development Bank of Latin America. We have collaborated before with the World Bank and important forums like the World Economic Forum, or as I mentioned before, the World Bank, and some other associations with GovTech companies like us across the world, such as the GovTech Global Alliance. We have a lot of projects at the moment. Over the past few years, we've been growing significantly, and we are working already with 12 public institutions in Spain. We have run more than 50 open innovation processes, and we have developed more than 100 pilots within public administration between government and startups. And we have a database also of GovTech startups of around 2,000 companies. Out of all of this, 600 have explicitly mentioned that they want to work with government and that they're interested in supplying their innovation to the public sector, and that most of them have done it before. So we have a curated and very niche ecosystem around our work. As I mentioned before, we're very specific in terms of what we bring to the public sector modernization realm. We believe that we're in a space where we provide something very specific, but we're also open to, collaboration with larger players like large consulting firms, large tech firms, because there's definitely significantly value added from, also introducing them to innovative and smaller providers so they can integrate innovative solutions in their supply chain. So there's that component of collaboration that is very intrinsic to the work that we do. And that's why I'm also very happy to see a diverse pool of players here, because even though we're very niche, we're definitely part of a larger conversation, and we're always welcoming different perspectives and different players to understand both our role and for us to kind of identify how we can best contribute to other organizations' work. So I'm going to pause here in case there are any questions, or if I don't know how do you want to manage the conversation, but I know that this was a lot of information, so I'm just going to pause here. You're muted, Jaime.
Microphone, Jaime.
Yes, okay. So thank you very much, Sofia. It was very interesting to have these insights from you and from your experience, especially in this innovative, open, and startup dimension that is more important than ever in the public sector. Now we have here Gonçalo, that has been a very experienced person here in Portugal in terms of smart government, things like that. I think, Gonçalo, you have some PowerPoint to present, right?
Hello. Good afternoon to you all. Yes, I do have some PowerPoint. I'm trying to join in because I'm having some problems with my computer. Not always the technology help us.
Yes, of course.
But I will try to join. Just a moment.
Okay, you make your presentation with the PowerPoint, and then we go to the discussion, because we have here a very interesting person that I think are interested in this.
Okay, let me try to make the presentation.
I think you have the possibility to share. It is given.
Okay. As I'm trying to share, I'll just start.
Okay. But we are not seeing you, Gonçalo. You can put your camera.
Okay. Now I think you can see me.
We cannot see. We cannot see. So sorry. Still.
Yes, I have two users. One from my.
Okay.
Just change the user, please. Thank you. I'm sorry. I have the audio on one computer and the video on the other, because they don't seem to be wanting to help me on this. So I'll try to put the slides on. Just a moment. Okay.
If you prefer, I can share it.
Oh, if you can, it will be perfect.
No,
Yes.
no, not me, but the person that is. I
Okay,
will.
that would be perfect. Okay, so I'm sorry about this delay, but thank you everyone for being here. And don't worry, the slides are mere illustrations of what I'm about to say. And I'd like to note, first of all, that these reflections today are built on over, I don't know, more than 20 years experience in the public administration modernization, both as a civil servant or as a consultant. I've always worked for the public administration, and it's a passion of mine. They are obviously also grounded in collaborative work from others, or papers or projects in which I participated. And for example, I would like to just take two of them. In 2015, more than 10 years ago, I took part in a paper by the Portuguese Association for the Promotion and Development of the Information Society, APDSI, titled The Contribution to State Reform. And as I read it during the weekend and during last week, I was surprised to see how so many things are still up to date. And I also, to these reflections today, I also draw on work by Maria Manuela Leitão Marques, that was the Minister for Public Administration Modernization in 2013, a paper for a seminar that was co-organized by the Bank of Portugal and Gulbenkian Foundation. So maybe this is a huge responsibility, standing on the shoulders of giants, but judging by these two examples, but it's something that I do with pleasure since it's a passion of mine. Jaime, you titled this session called Smart State. Maybe if it was me, I would have called it Simple State. But it's a very intriguing way to frame the discussion. It seems like we seek to add adjectives to the state because we desire it to behave differently. And that Sofia was talking about innovation and how does demand and search can promote different types of innovation in a public sector. So this brings us to a fundamental question: what exactly do we expect from public service? It's expected that the state provides or ensures the provision of highly diverse and high quality services, and doing so while also minimizing the corresponding taxes and other revenues. And so this is the question somehow seems blunt, but it's a very complex topic. In Portugal today, we return to the topic of state reform even, and not least because we now have a minister responsible for this portfolio, a portfolio which throughout the history of democracy has seen periods in Portugal, has seen periods of prominence and obscurity, sometimes existing within the government structure, sometimes not. And however, we have shifted from the term administrative modernization or innovation to state reform, implying that the assumption that the state does not adequately fulfill expectations. And this is not merely out of whim or perfectionism. Like it's an evident assumption because we keep talking about reform, smart state, simple state, modern state, whatever. So this raises a prior question: what do we expect from the state, and more precisely, what is expected from public service? And I would say that it's complex because it's a question that each stakeholder represents a universe of millions of individuals, but also furthermore, expectations are not static. Like throughout the day, we can go from one extreme to another. Like the state should go away, leave me alone, and to the opposite, the state must solve my problem. Just think about it. If you're standing at your garage door and there's a car blocking it, you go to the state must solve my problem and quickly. But if we are talking about licensing for my business, most of us would say, let the state leave me alone, please, because I'm doing my own work. So it's complicated. And to complicate the issue, just let's just think about exactly in the same day, in the same 24 hours, when we can go from one extreme of thinking about the state to another, it fluctuates. We can also have different labels, different roles while interacting with public services. For example, I can be either be in the morning a citizen, a user, a taxpayer, or a beneficiary. In the afternoon, I can be a student, an agent, a voter, and these numerous labels applied in a single day or throughout our lives illustrate many of the multiple relationships that each one of them generates distinct expectations. So I would just leave us with that example, and I'm sure that now maybe we can see already the presentation.
Yes, I think so. Enrique, I think you have already the presentation, right? Okay, he's trying to share now.
Okay, perfect.
Because there was also here a little problem with the sharing.
Okay,
I think
it happens.
today
No
we are not
problem.
having success with tech. Okay, but you can go on.
Let me continue. So I had this slide with glasses of water. Some of them
Yes,
fill
in
from
1 minute.
the middle.
In 1 minute, I think we have the presentation.
Perfect. But
Okay.
this is to make the statement that it's a very complex topic. Nevertheless, common denominators can be identified. Like, for example, I have some expectations that are common denominators through all the population, and in addressing, for example, effectiveness, sectorial discussions can arise. For example, I can make questions regarding each one of the sectors by the state, understanding its complexity. But some of the sectors, some of the ministries, whatever the public administration is organized, they need significant more reform effort than others. In some areas, one might argue that there are no significant challenges, meaning that the public service provided is generally accepted. Like fire departments respond quickly when necessary, emergency services work, we receive medical care when we are sick, or pensions are paid on time and schedule. But even in these cases, there are opportunities for improvement. Maybe not in more services, but perhaps in better services. But if it's not homogeneous sector by sector, if complexity is evident, even from the example of our numerous roles, is there anything resembling a state reform? And that takes us to the.
Okay, we have already the presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so you can go on to the first slide.
Yes.
Or to the second one. Yeah.
Can you go to the first slide? Totally. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that if we are talking about a not homogeneous problem and a very complex one, and with a very broad scope, to abandon the idea of making a reform or the reform would be the way to go. Like, it's not because the public administration does not deserve our full attention, but because we need to demystify the process and understand that change occurs in stages, not in one stroke through some enlightened checklist or a checklist of measures or a checklist of whatever we should be doing. I do believe that we are not changing the slides, but
yes,
Eric,
can you
go
change
to the
for the other slide, please? Okay, I think we have some problems.
Oh, okay, no worry. What we need to think about when we are thinking on a smart state or a simple state or whatever is what are the distinct realities and choosing what to change in those distinct realities. And we can make some questions among us, like adjust the education model to current social and demographic realities, adjust the training to whatever the economy is going to need in the future, or to increase the speed and quality of justice, or to try to anticipate crime phenomenons to be able to act before it happens. Each of these dimensions, it's one reform by itself, and it's probably extending beyond one government legislature. So it's something very complex, and that's the point that I make in those slides. And even other types of reforms is like thinking how the services are provided, and in there are some common ground also. Like we all agree that we need to improve citizens' accessibility to public services, regardless of where they live or what are their skills. We also have common ground on reducing the cost of service provision, decreasing material resources. So abandoning the idea of reform is probably the best way to do a reform of the public administration. It's the best way to do the modernization of that public administration. And either we slice the elephant by vertically or horizontally, we can choose some focus and some reforms. From another perspective, designing those reform objectives, that we must considering ongoing initiatives. One thing that we as a citizen we really try to fight is to see things that from government to government things are not continued. Like it has to stop. It doesn't make sense. And establishing assuming that different developing ideas may remain valid even in different political contexts, should be our plan. So establishing reform focus, main objectives, limits, and see what's crucial for its success. It's a principle that it seems simple, but it offers many advantages. It acknowledges the impracticability of a global and unique process and focus on achievable goals. So this is a big message around this topic. Okay, I've passed through these slides.
Okay.
Our
Do you want to
expectations
go to
are
the other
different.
slide? Okay.
Yeah.
If you
From
can
time
go
to
to the
time,
other slide.
and
Okay.
it's important to demystify the process as it states there, and understand that change occurs in stages. Okay. Let me give you, I would say, what we've discussed so far has already been done many times. So we've had good plans, good measures, but some did not produce the intended results, or sometimes the results reverted to the way it was before. Let me give you an example. The last time I visited the registries to buy a house, and we have this really great service that is called in English house ready, casa pronta, and it does not it takes care of the way that the state is organized, and it makes it smart because it's a one-stop shop for me as a citizen who just wants to buy a house and has this huge life event that it wants to interact in a smart way with the state, to use the Jaime Casado's topic, and it was great. It was something done in 2007, 2008. It worked perfectly. And the last time I visited, I had this paper that it was on the wall saying, "Look, now after you register your house, then you have to go and pay the taxes at the tax authority," and that is the last thing that I wanted to know as a citizen. I don't want to know if there is even a tax authority involved in the process. I just wanted a one-stop shop. So the initiative, the reform was made, and then it reverted to a previous state because it was producing some burdens, and somehow it reverted to initial state. And I will discuss how was that possible and what should be done by the very end. What can be done to not let it revert what good measures there were implemented. So the agents, the mechanisms, and other prevailing conditions essential to the success of initiatives it contains, particularly considering limitations from, for example, recruiting to the public administration or service contracting challenges that public bodies always face. This may result in the necessary means for timely implementation of programs and projects being unavailable. So I would say that one of the key factors to success is to make plans pragmatic and realistic as should the targets they encompass. So this is something that should be done. But how to bridge the gap between wanting to act and making things happen? And I can go to my last slide.
Yes, you can change, Henrique, to the other slide, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
How to bridge the gap between wanting to act and making things happen? I would say that, and this must be done by empowerment of public officers, rewarding merit, allowing them to test, experiment. It's something crucial. Experiment, for example, with solutions that think tanks like the organizations like Sofia is head of could bring us, and confront and confront in the beginning all the implicit barriers or explicit barriers to modernize the public administration. For example, so many times procurement and procurement laws and rules act as an inhibiting factor whenever change involves acquiring goods or services. And you can go on to the following slide.
Yes. Henrique, to the following slide, please. Okay.
And just to the last one. Okay.
No, to the last one.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. Okay. And so besides that, citizens are probably the best, the part of the solution, and probably the best friends of any reform. If the reform progress is well known, if there is a dialogue maintained with citizens, if they have been explained why the changes are being made, they will be probably the main defenders of the reform, and they will be the ones supporting it. And if they understand the impacts of the actions, I do think that they will be on the, I would say, they will be the ones that are making things work and not letting public initiatives and reforms revert. It is for me, it's very it is vital to understand the impacts on everyone, especially on citizens, on public officers, on taxpayers, on etc., so that the reforms, the programs are transparent both in means and ends. So just to finish, I tried to, and I'm sorry about the way that things act with the slides not so synchronized.
No problem.
But the statement was, it's very complex. It's a very broad scope. Even if we look just at 24 hours of our lives, we have different roles regarding the state. So that should illustrate the complexity. So the best way to reform the public administration is not talking about the reform, but talking about a culture of innovation, a culture of change, and empowering public officers to do it. And from the beginning, try to take care of the inhibitors of those projects, of that particular change, and make citizens, like it says there on the slides, make citizens part of the solution. And all of this requires the highest level of involvement of politicians, because a simpler state demands courage and culture and continuous change. And so this was my food for thought in order to go on to the Q&A. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Gonçalo. Thank you very much, Sofia. I know that Sofia problems with the connection. So today the technology is not working well. I think it's very interesting that when we speak about smart government, sometimes we have smart problems. Okay, we have here with us some people that are very keen on these topics, and I think it would be interesting to have ideas, questions. So I start with Anna. As I told before, Anna has some experience doing these topics for a long time. Anna, do you want to make any comment and question? And then I pass to other people, please.
Yes, sure. Is Sofia still with us?
Yes. Sofia is with us. See,
Okay.
because she's in a place where she's having some problems. Yes, but Sofia, you are with us. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
There is
So-
one topic, Anna, that I think is interesting. This difference between smart government and simple government. I think this topic is very interesting from Gonçalo. But please, the topic is
absolutely. Gonçalo introduced and present a very good diagnosis of the situation, and about the failure of what has been done so far, and so everything that you presented, I totally share. I totally concur, even if Gonçalo is an expert on this matter, and which it's not my case. So my case is that I deal and I negotiate and I work to the state, but to the sovereignty policies of the state on the digital public policies. But on the public service to citizens, Gonçalo he said something that is very important in all digital policies, in everything that we are doing, and in all innovative policies. It's a multi-stakeholder approach, and the important to have the citizens on board and the different stakeholders. When we don't have on the same boat all the important stakeholders, so everything will not reach a very good outcome. But for Sofia, I would like to ask her what is her best achievement so far. So, because public service is it is something so complex that you really have to understand what we want to achieve with this simple state. So it's a way of Gonçalo to address this issue in a very good way, I believe. And so I would like to know, with your experience, what is your best achievement? What did you do that you consider you really added something that had impact on the innovation of the processes and on the system? Thank you very much.
Okay. Now I pass to Nuno Oliveira Santos, that is here also with us. He has a lot of experience in these topics too. Nuno, do you want to make some comment? Sorry, I told before that we are speaking in English because Sofia, although she is Spanish, she has some difficulty in understanding the Portuguese. So I think it's not a problem to speak in English because all deal with international topics, and sometimes it's good for us to make some smart discussions in English. Nuno, please.
I don't know exactly what you want me to comment, and for me, I talk in English from Monday to Friday.
Yes, I know. Yes,
I would expect a smart discussion for Portuguese government with a friend from the other side of the border. I live in Madrid, Sofia, by the way.
Maybe
so
you can contact in the future. Okay, I give you the contacts if possible.
No, I saw Sofia's presence in a recent event in the GovTech Ministry of Justice of Spain and other things. But anyway, I'm just I was commenting for everyone to know. I was saying to Jaime that eventually other people here could be more at ease speaking in Portuguese and going despacios, and Sofia would understand everything for everyone to be at ease. But if you want to make it international, we go international.
Yes.
Listen, I think I take the comments from my friend Gonçalo that is dedicating more than half of his still young age to public services management and transformation. To quote on a triangle that, regardless of the time passing by, it still stays with me, coming from our common strong school Accenture. Transformation is about a combination of people, processes, and technologies. And I still have the feeling we talk more than we should about processes and technologies and less than we should about people. For a smarter government or more intelligent government, I think the initial proposal from Jean for today was intelligent government or intelligent state. I really think that the topic of qualifications would be the one. The gaps is already significant between the average skills of public servants and people in the private sector in technology. Everyone expects a lot from public services, and I have the feeling that in the political programs and also in the mandates of the public entities, there is not enough attention to qualifications. I hope that with this pressure coming from several angles, because Gonçalo talks about a simpler state. Normally simple and big don't go together. So let's not avoid the discussion on the size of the state. We do that in every organization. Somehow we avoid that discussion when we go to public administration. We talk about simplicity, but we don't touch the discussion on size. So it's really a hard equation. But I hope that here in Portugal, under this new cycle, the people that now have the political responsibility, people like Gonçalo, Matias, Bernardo, Paulo, Luz, very experienced people, they really understand how important it is to qualify. For you to qualify, you need to bring new people home. For you to bring new people home, probably you need to allow some people to go. That's also a tough discussion, but probably there is space for us to find some ways to make it work and also to benchmark. So qualifications and the challenges with the equation, Gonçalo.
No, can I comment on that, please?
Yes, okay. I had another. Gonçalo, do you want already to comment, or we can ask for another?
Because it was
okay.
Maybe you can make this a more interactive discussion if possible.
No problem. Yes.
But,
so Gonçalo, yes, please.
Yes, I totally agree with qualification of public officers. I'm glad that I made a statement about it. To have a smart public administration, you need smart people. But you know what goes along with innovation every time? Freedom. The freedom for the public officer to test and fail, the freedom to be innovative, because it seems like it's a matter of culture also. So qualification is not enough. And on the other part that you also mentioned, like public services and state, big state versus small state, etc. I think we lack a discussion of what is the way that we want the state to provide us services, for example. Is it acceptable? If you have a company and you want to control demand, if you want to be really efficient, you want to control demand. How do you control demand? Well, maybe if you have a store, you close the door and you make it by appointment. Are we keen, and I think we lack the discussion, are we keen on the tax administration, for example, to be only by appointment only, so that it will be really efficient? Or do you want to have an open shop where anybody can enter and have a public officer in front of them? So we lack a part of the discussion to make it to modernize the public administration service, the way that it's not only the back office, it's the front office also. And I really think that we lack a culture of not only of qualification, but of freedom for the public officer and for the high level public officer, especially. Sorry,
Okay.
Jaime, it's just
No
a comment on that.
problem. And I think that Sofia, can you answer to Anna, please?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Nuno's discussion because I think it follows up on what Gonçalo is mentioning, and then I'll get back to Anna. But I think what we really need sometimes is not really just like qualifications in terms of like formal, certificates and training, but sometimes what we need is to allow them to test new ways of working, right? And we see them very often when we do open innovation because we're bringing together teams that work in, let's say like municipal departments and startups, right? And then all of a sudden they get exposed to agile methodologies and to testing and to experimenting and to piloting. And they probably have never done this before. And what's really interesting here is that a lot of the risk aversion that they feel when they're, like exposed to things that they're not familiar with, that gets automatically somewhat managed by getting them exposed to other players that work in different ways that they do, right? So sometimes it's not just about like formal qualifications, but rather just exposing them to other ways of working and other ways of doing things. That's why open innovation programs work really well, because in some kind of way, you're creating a facilitated and a controlled and a structured safe place where they can actually test these new methodologies, and where they can actually kind of like get a little bit out of their way of working and do something different in a way that is not just like freedom, as Gonçalo was saying. It's freedom within the bubble that is controlled. And that's what's really important, because I think public sector can't really afford to risk it all, right? It's like we're working within context that, their ultimate goal is to, do service provision and be there for citizens. You can't really do it in the same way that you do it in the private sector, where you can risk it all. And, if it fails, it fails. So unless you do controlled spaces like sandboxes or like open innovation programs or labs or anything, or hubs or anything like that, it's going to be really hard for them to feel comfortable enough to actually do things in a different way, because they can't really risk it, right? There has to be some kind of backup, allowing them to be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to try this, but if it doesn't work, it's going to be okay, right? So that's what's really important. And then going back to what Anna was asking in terms of some of our biggest accomplishments, I think one of the biggest accomplishments we've done was to actually explore different ways of applying procurement law in Spain, right? Because a lot of what we're seeing is public servants that are very conservative, that are very scared to do things in a different way. So they take the procurement law and they're extremely conservative with it. They're like, okay, like I can do small contracts for 15K, inviting 3 companies, or I can actually, just invite 1 company into the process. But since they're being very conservative, because they're really scared, they're going to invite 3 companies. And that's not necessarily good for all the situations, because sometimes you want 1 company for a very specific reason that is well enough justified, right? So there's a lot of problems with the interpretation of law and the kind of like the inertia of working in the way that they have been used to for a really long time. And what we have been trying to do with our open innovation programs is to test new applications of the procurement law. So we're not changing the law, we're rather taking pieces of the procurement law that could be applied in a different way. And to give you a very specific example, there's an article of procurement law that is actually, it's equivalent to European law. So this could be applied to every country in the European Union, and it's called the design contest. The design contest is basically an article within procurement law that used to be applied to architecture programs and projects, where basically you're allowed to submit a pilot or a test of what you want to build. And then the best proposal out of, let's say, 3 or 5, and this is decided by an expert panel, the best proposal gets awarded a direct contract of up to, we've seen 1 million, 3 million. And this used to be applied to architecture only. But this same logic could be applied to technology. Why? Because it's really hard to buy technology without actually testing it or trying it. You can't really buy ChatGPT out of a document that explains how it works. You have to actually use it and see how it goes. And you have to actually be fast enough to procure it, because in 3 months, the ChatGPT that you have bought, it's probably going to be due. It's going to be already outdated, right? So we have applied it to technology, to the purchase of innovative technology. And what we have built is basically a process where, let's say, a couple of startups, a scale-up, submit their proposals to solve a specific challenge within public administration. Within a panel of experts, they choose the best solution. And up until now, they may have been awarded a minor contract, let's say 15K, to do the small pilot or the small MVP. One gets awarded the award and automatically gets a direct contract of up to 1 million, 3 million to actually develop that solution or scale it within the same administration. Now, this, for example, it's a different way of applying procurement law, something that already exists. And it's a way of pushing them to do things differently within the context that they feel safe in. So it's a controlled space where they know that they're doing things right, they're being accompanied, there's facilitation. And on top of kind of like the culture change that happens automatically by being exposed to different players, we're actually allowing better innovation into our government systems, right? So that's probably one of the biggest accomplishments that we have attained lately. We are going to procure, or we're going to help our clients procure about €1 million under this procurement law in 2025, and we're going to be running 14 different design contests just in Spain. And on top of that, we are involved in a project of the European Commission that is called GovTech for All, where we are going to be implementing this method of procurement law across I think 10 different countries within Europe, to see how the small difference in law or the small differences in culture can really affect the final outcome, and to compare and contrast and generate best practices. So this, for example, is a big change. Startups usually get stuck into the small contracts, then they can't really go forward. So allowing them to actually, get contracts up to 15K and then, go up to 1 million, it's already something that is, quite groundbreaking. So just wanted to flag that.
Okay, we go to another topics. I don't know. We have here everyone that wants to make some questions. Please put your hand. It's the usual way. We have here Elena Monteiro. I think it's you, Elena, right? The president of the Association for Information Society. Elena, is you? Because it's only Elena that appears here. Elena Monteiro? No. So, okay. We have here Carlos Tavares, that was a former minister some years ago. Carlos, do you want to make some comment or some question to our invitees?
I might make them, but I'm afraid I have slightly different views about this issue.
Okay, Sofia, Carlos was the Minister of Economy in Portugal some years ago, so he has an experience concerning government. Okay, Carlos, please.
Yeah. I had the opportunity of seeing the public administration from several points of observation, and that's why I have some views that differ a bit from what I've heard. First, there are some misconceptions that we should avoid. Reforming the state is not the same as reforming public administration, although they partially coincide. But the reform of the state is broader than the reform of public administration, because it includes the political and administrative organization of the state, the choice of the functions that the state shall perform or not perform, and also even the electoral law and other issues that are very broad. Also, reforming the public administration is not the same as adopting a few measures that may solve specific problems, but that not change broadly the public administration. And at this stage, I think we have a structure of the public administration that is very old, that was thought to other times, not to the current times, and that need to be reviewed. And it cannot be reviewed by the public administration itself. Yes, I think that the leaders, the managers in the public administration should be competent and very, very very well, but that implies to, as the first reform, probably changing the method of selecting and appointing the managers of the public administration, and not as they have been so far, that are most of the times for political reasons. But what I mean about the methodology is that actually I think we lost 35 years. And allow me to go back to 89. I was at the government at the time as well as a Secretary of State for Treasury. And there was at the time a resolution of the Council of Ministers stating the methodology to reform the public administration, which was a very pragmatic and correct method, which was based on systematic management audits, service by service, made by external entities. And this is an important point, because if you ask a public service, and the audits, the objective was to analyze whether or not the service was still pertinent, because it is needed, if it has the right dimension, if it has the right people, if it has the right functions, if it has the right resources, both human and technical and financial resources.
Okay.
And this was made by external entities, because if you ask the public bodies if they have too many people, or if they have functions that are not anymore updated, no service will tell you that they have too many people or excess resources, or that they are not very important. And at the time, some auditors were selected. Actually, I don't know if KPMG was selected at the time, but with the minister Miguel Cadillo, this happened in 89. Then Miguel Cadillo left the ministry, and the Ministry of Finance, which at the time was the ministry in charge of the reform of the public administration. Miguel Cadillo left the ministry, and the process did not go on. And 35 years later, I still think is the best way to do it. Of course, today with the plus, that is the possibilities of digitalization. But again, before digitalizing, you have to change the processes, because if you are digitalizing the present bureaucracy, you will replace paper bureaucracy with digital bureaucracy. So I think this is a very complex process, and I think it's very important when you start it to know where we are and where we want to go to.
Yes. Thank you very much. It's important to have here also the comment, someone that has the experience in government. Sofia, do you want to make some comment on this? Are people the most important in the process or not? What is your experience? And then Gonçalo can comment also. What do you think about that? We are not listening, Sofia.
People, what we really want to go for is realistic measures, right? Because we have been talking about reform, we have been talking about like drastic measures, but the reality is that takes a lot of time, and that takes a lot of resources, and we need something that we can actually like do right now, right? There's a couple of like small measures that you can implement pretty much tomorrow. They're not necessarily like big dramatic changes, but that can actually catalyze towards something bigger. And that's definitely kind of like opening up the supplier market for technology providers, right? If you keep hiring, or if you keep buying the same technology from the same providers, you're going to get very little diversity. And I think at least from an state efficiency point of view, you're always looking for the best provider at the best possible price for the actual problem that you're dealing with, right? So if we can get to that point, that's a probably in terms of efficiency, something that we change of law, like sometimes you need a different interpretation of what's already out there. And it's the same thing when we're talking about people and upskilling them in capacities. Like, yeah, we can definitely, like fire a lot of people and then hire a lot of young people if we manage to find them. But the reality is that that's tricky, right? So how can we generate learning situations within the existing workforce that we have, and new ways of working that can actually enable them to become upskilled in digital skills or in new methodologies without investing that much. And that's something that we can also do because we can, diversify the type of providers that they get in contact with and the type of projects that they do. So that's something that it's not that tricky. So I think sometimes we tend to go for this, like big paradigms where we want to do a lot of things and we want to like pretty much change the whole stage, but that's not quite realistic. Sometimes, just getting procurement teams to actually procure a solution in less than 8 months, that's already sometimes, more than a feat, because it's kind of hard, but it shouldn't be hard, right? So sometimes it's small changes that can actually add that agility that it's what citizens are demanding, and that it's what also the world is demanding right now. Like sometimes, we don't need less bureaucracy sometimes. Sometimes what we need is it's a partnership between agility and bureaucracy, because we do need the norm and the structure, because we need to preserve the welfare state. But at the same time, we do need challengers that are always looking on towards how to improve the state and how to do things differently. And it has to be a balance between both of them. You can't really work with one or the other. It has to be a balance between both of them. So we tend to look for tactical spaces where small changes added up over time can create big changes, instead of kind of scratching everything out, because there's really like very specific spaces where we can improve things tomorrow that don't necessarily change of law, of structures or anything that's that big.
Thank you very much, Sofia. Gonçalo, do you want to make some comment on Carlos?
Yeah. So I think that we were basically on the same page, and I do understand that the clarification on concepts that Carlos wanted to make. Where I think that we are on, let's call it opposite sides, is that I don't think that is possible, since the problem is very complex and the scope is very broad. I don't think that it's possible to do programs like that. Let's call it whatever you want. That we can call it a reform such a broad scope. I do think that we must implement a culture of change, a culture of modernization, and we should. What I tried to say in my presentation is that it does not work to have just a reform and then to act in a way that tomorrow after the reform everything will be solved. I think it's such a complex problem with such a broad scope that some drastic measures can be made, but most of them will come from cultural change and a culture of innovation and modernization, and with all those problems that Carlos talked about. But I don't think that such a broad scope on a program is possible.
Okay.
But it was a perfect intervention. Yes.
Okay, we have here some people that work also in smart companies, in startups, and also other companies. Paulo Ribeiro, do you want to make some question? I would like some very brief question, because we want to give the role to other people. Please. Are you listening, Paulo?
Yes, I have nothing.
Yes. I'm listening.
No. I was asking Paulo Ribeiro, but then I can go to Paulo Menezes also. Yes, please, Paulo, please.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Nothing,
sorry.
nothing.
Because I'm driving, so it's not easy, and I arrived this meeting too late. But I can try to leave a question.
A very brief question, okay, please.
Regarding the role of IPO, intellectual property, on this discussion. I think that's an important thing, because innovation is quite related to intellectual property. Okay, and how should we manage intellectual property around innovation on public sector, and in the relation with companies and solution and service providers?
Okay. Paulo Menezes, you are working in Azores. That is also a very interesting hub for technology. Do you want to make some question?
No, thank you. I'm in Azores. It's
Yes.
okay. Very good
You,
weather.
you don't want to make some question. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think Albert Castro, you are still here with us? No. Albert Castro is not longer than anymore. Okay. I don't know if anyone wants to make any question so that we can pass to Joyce. You used to work in IT in the past, and you are still working, but in the past in a very well-known multinational. Do you want to make some question to Sofia and to Gonçalo so that we can close?
Sorry, I was disconnected. Thank you very much, Jaime.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
And thank you all for the great event. It's always a pleasure to listen into your thoughts. Regarding to the speakers, I would like to have their views on the AI and transformation of public sector, if it is possible.
Okay. So we start now with Gonçalo, and then we conclude with Sofia. Okay, Gonçalo, please.
Perfect. And thank you for the question. I really do think that the public administration of the future is not one that fulfills or complies with our expectations regarding the services that we need. Is the one that anticipates our needs. Is the one that with data anticipates our needs and delivers the service when we need it, and not and not because we requested it. For example, I'll give you an example that does not require AI, and then an example with AI. For example, I don't want to go to a citizen shop to take care of some document that is not valid anymore. I want to receive a text message saying your document will not be valid within 60 days. Look, if you want to pay now, just pay and we'll deliver it to your home. And this does not need AI, but AI can help to anticipate needs. For example, anticipating that a hospital will need to have more nurses or more doctors or whatever, because it's expected to be cold weather, for example, in the next week. AI can help the public administration to anticipate your needs and to adjust to your life event. And I think that can be done in such a personalized way that I really think that it will change the face of public administration. So that's the future for me. Okay, but to achieve that, again, we must give freedom and have innovative people working within the public administration, the right partnerships with private sector, and so we have a lot of inhibitors still to achieve that.
Okay, and to conclude, Sofia has to leave, but she will give a final statement on this AI. Okay, Sofia, and thank you very much for your.
Yeah, I completely agree with Gonçalo. I think a proactive government is the key. I think there's also lots of room for internal efficiency, especially under procurement departments that can benefit a lot from AI. But yeah, I completely agree with the premise that sometimes we need the state to be a step ahead instead of being reactive, and to be proactive, and that's definitely what we should be aiming for. So I really need to go now, but I just want to thank you.
Okay. Yes.
And
yes, Sofia and Gonçalo.
Discussion.
It was a pleasure, Sofia, to have you here with us. I know that you have been doing a great job in Spain, and we hope that you can be in Portugal very soon to participate in a conference. Gonçalo, thank you very much also for your participation. We know already you for a long time. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. We have in the future other conversations on Smart Quorum. Thank you very much, and have a nice week for everybody. Okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Muito obrigado a todos, tá bem? E boa semana, ok? Muito obrigado.